We've all watched this movie play out. You start earning more, then the spending quietly creeps up with it. A nicer watch here, a flashier car there. Before you know it, you're running on that hedonic treadmill, working harder than ever, but somehow only feeling successful when everyone else can see it. And honestly, it makes sense. You grind for your money, so of course you want the rewards to show. But here's the twist most people don't see coming. One of the biggest secrets to building real wealth is doing the exact opposite. It's living well below your means. It's choosing practical over flashy. And it works far better than most people realize. There's a reason you don't usually spot real millionaires pulling up in supercars. More often than not, they're driving something simple and reliable. Nothing loud, nothing that screams for attention. The people who are truly wealthy don't feel the need to announce it. They're too busy letting their money quietly work for them. That's because real wealth is invisible. It doesn't beg to be noticed. It looks ordinary. It blends in. Most everyday rich people didn't get there by flexing. They got there by mastering the art of looking average. And when people say looking poor, that doesn't mean scraping by or living miserably. It doesn't mean worn-out clothes or a car on its last breath. It just means living modestly, with no obvious clues about what's actually sitting in your bank account. Think about it. Some of the richest people on the planet are walking around in plain t-shirts, basic jeans, and shoes you could buy at a regular mall. They drive normal cars. They live normal-looking lives. It's almost like staying under the radar is part of the strategy. And it's not random. It's psychological. Lately, there's been a real shift in how people think about money. More and more are realizing that the fastest way to look rich is often the slowest way to actually become rich. And the real power move? Looking poor. Writers and creators in the personal growth space keep circling back to the same idea. True wealth stays hidden. The people who quietly stack millions are often the ones living the most unassuming lives. Blue jeans, plain t-shirt, a car that's been paid off for years. No flex, no noise, just financial freedom. People who've worked inside banks and financial institutions often say the same thing. At first, they assume the clients with luxury bags, watches, and cars must be loaded. Then they check the numbers. And the reality hits hard. Those flashy lifestyles are usually built on debt, not cash. High spending, high balances, high stress. Now sure, if you're born into serious money or you've built a massive empire, the rules bend a little. When income is limitless, spending doesn't sting the same way. But for most people, the strategy of looking poor is incredibly powerful because it slashes your overhead. No crushing car payments, no interest draining your future, no constant pressure to keep upgrading just to keep up appearances. Every dollar you don't spend trying to look successful becomes a dollar you can actually use. And that's where things get exciting, because once you've freed up that cash, once you've stopped bleeding money on appearances, you're left with the real question. What are you going to do with it? How are you going to invest it so it starts working harder than you ever could? Now, picture this. You wake up one morning and someone drops a set of keys in your hand. Brand new Lamborghini. Yours. Free. No strings attached. Sounds like a dream, right? Now, fast forward a few weeks. You're spending thousands every year just to keep it running. Premium gas only. Insurance bills that hit like a punch to the chest. A tiny part breaks, and suddenly you're waiting months for a replacement to ship from Italy. What started as a blessing quietly turns into a financial headache. You didn't buy the car, but somehow it's owning you. There's actually a name for this trap. Philosophers call it the Diderot Effect. It goes all the way back to the 1700s, when a writer named Denis Diderot was gifted a luxurious red robe. It was gorgeous, too gorgeous. The moment he put it on, everything else in his home looked cheap. His chair felt wrong. His desk felt outdated. His rug didn't match. So he upgraded one thing, then another, then another. That free gift set off a chain reaction that eventually wiped him out financially. The lesson is simple and brutal. The more you upgrade one part of your life, the more pressure you feel to upgrade everything else. The more you own, the more you're owned. So how do you escape that spiral? You stay lean. There's real power in keeping your lifestyle simple. When you stop trying to impress people, you also stop feeling forced to constantly level up just to keep up appearances. The mental weight lifts. The financial pressure eases. Suddenly, your money works for you instead of against you. A lot of people think a big salary automatically equals financial freedom. It doesn't. In fact, a huge percentage of high earners are still living paycheck to paycheck. Not because they don't make enough, but because their lifestyle grows faster than their income. Designer clothes, luxury watches, expensive luggage. Each purchase feels small on its own, but together they quietly drain everything. Meanwhile, some of the wealthiest people to ever live did the exact opposite. They chose value over flash. They flew economy, wore cheap watches, used everyday items without a second thought. Not because they couldn't afford better, but because they understood something most people miss. The real enemy isn't greed, it's envy. That constant itch to keep up, to match what your neighbor has, to prove something to people who aren't paying your bills. The moment you conquer that urge, you gain a massive advantage. When you adopt the habits of the truly wealthy instead of copying their luxury, you start pulling ahead fast. And let's be honest, we're all trying to improve our lives. We get the raise, land the promotion, upgrade the car, move to a nicer place. For a moment, it feels incredible. Then the feeling fades, and now your new normal is more expensive than your old one ever was. That's the hedonic treadmill in action. You're running harder, spending more, but staying in the exact same emotional spot. Research shows that once your basic needs are covered, food, shelter, healthcare, extra money barely moves long-term happiness. Even lottery winners tend to return to their old happiness levels shockingly fast. Humans adapt. That's what we do. Think about the last time you bought a new phone. At first, you were obsessed. The screen looked amazing. The camera was sharp. Everything felt fresh. Then a newer model came out. And suddenly, your phone didn't feel special anymore. The cycle started all over again. Let's be real. We've all felt that pressure to keep up with the Joneses. And if you've ever tried it, you already know the truth. It's exhausting. Mentally, emotionally, financially. And the numbers back it up in a big way. A huge majority of people say money stress is constantly sitting on their shoulders. Not once in a while, regularly, week after week, month after month. That constant background anxiety isn't random. It usually comes from the same place, trying to maintain a lifestyle that looks good on the outside but feels suffocating on the inside. Here's where things start to go sideways. You buy the flashy car. You stretch for the house that eats up a massive chunk of your income. On paper, it looks like success. In real life, you've just stepped onto another treadmill. Because it's never just the price tag. Bigger homes mean higher bills. Nicer cars mean more maintenance and insurance. Suddenly, you're locked into a cycle where you have to keep grinding just to stay afloat. That's the trap. When status comes before stability, you get stuck in survival mode. You're not building momentum, you're just feeding the machine you created. The fastest way out of that feeling isn't some secret hack. It's creating space, a real gap between what you earn and what you spend. When you start pushing income up and pulling expenses down, something powerful happens. Money stops being a source of panic and starts becoming a tool. You're no longer just paying bills. You're buying back peace of mind, flexibility, and control over your own time. One of the easiest ways to shift into this mindset comes from an unexpected place: decluttering. You've probably heard of the idea of only keeping what truly adds value to your life. When you apply that thinking beyond your closet and into your finances, everything changes. Fewer things to manage, fewer things to ensure, fewer things demanding your attention. The noise fades and clarity shows up. And when the clutter disappears, so does a lot of unnecessary spending. You stop buying out of habit. You stop buying out of boredom. You stop buying just to keep up. The result? Lower expenses, lighter stress, and way more breathing room. Now let's talk about freedom, real freedom. There's a simple rule that puts it all into perspective. Your financial independence number is directly tied to how much you spend. The less your lifestyle costs, the smaller the finish line becomes. That's a massive shift. Modest living isn't about sacrifice. It's about lowering the price tag on your freedom. You don't need a viral business exit. You don't need to grind until you're exhausted. You don't need a 7-figure income to breathe easy. Freedom isn't earned by how much you make. It's earned by how little you need. There's another angle people rarely talk about, and it's just as important. Visibility has a cost. When you flaunt wealth, you attract attention, and not the good kind. Envy, manipulation, scams, bad intentions. Flashy living puts a target on your back. Quiet living protects you. In a world obsessed with flex culture, staying low-key is a power move. We've all met that person who leads with their wallet. The insistence on turning every outing into a high-priced event. It looks glamorous, but there's a hidden downside. When money is the main signal you send out, you attract people who are drawn to what you have, not who you are. That's a dangerous game. You never really know people's intentions. Relationships built around status don't last, and they almost always leave you drained, financially and emotionally. You end up performing a role just to keep people around who don't actually care about you. Living modestly flips that script. It filters people fast. The clout chasers disappear. What remains are people who genuinely connect with your values, your energy, and your character. That's not just good for your bank account, it's good for your sanity. Choosing to look average in a world obsessed with appearances is a bold move. But let's be clear, this isn't about deprivation. It's about power. It's about peace. It's about purpose. Looking modest doesn't mean unsafe neighborhoods or worn-out clothes. It means intentional choices. It means focusing on long-term wealth instead of short-term validation. For some people, that shows up in small habits: finding deals, reusing what still works, avoiding impulse buys. For others, it's a deeper lifestyle shift: spending time on meaningful experiences instead of expensive distractions. The key is alignment. When your spending matches what actually matters to you, everything simplifies. Life gets lighter, decisions get easier, and wealth starts growing, not just in your bank account, but in your relationships, your mindset, and your sense of freedom.